Yeah, I'm sorry guys. I just looked at the time and realized I overshot it. I was doing my own homework. Um, so I'll do this. I figure there's not going to be that many people watching since I missed 7:30. It's 8 o'clock. So I'm gonna just do this that way people can watch it on replay. So I'm gonna try and make this about 10 minutes. I can still see the questions, so I'm pretty sure QWERTY Boy is Sebastian. So if you have a question, Sebastian, go ahead and ask it. All right. So tomorrow we're going to be taking a test. It'll be on the vocabulary essentially. So we're focused right here, all this stuff. Hey, what's up, Gabe? Man, that's a name from the past. All right, so let's go through this really quick. So scarcity, I think all of you understand for the most part. I'll go over central next. I'm going to do the terms first, Sebastian, and then I'm going to go and do the economic systems. Okay? So scarcity is basically not having enough of stuff. So that's why it says all resources and goods are limited right here. But this is the one that you guys seem to struggle with. The inability to satisfy all wants at the same time. Essentially what that means is everybody wants something, but there's just not enough to go around. Like if you're in the desert, everybody's going to want water. And essentially, sometimes you're just running low on water, you got to ration it. Water is scarce in the desert. So that's why we were using that as our main example in class. Resources. There's 4 types. We have natural, human, capital, entrepreneurship. So natural, you're coming from the earth. We're talking wood, oil, water, that stuff. Human, that's going to be your workers. Like I'm a human resource for Prince William County. Any type of job, they are a human resource for whatever company or agency or organization that you're helping out. Capital is going to be the man-made goods that you pay for. So when you use that pencil, you're using a capital good to write your notes. The production is your notes. Right now, my capital good that I'm using is my computer because it didn't come from the ground, so it's not natural. It's not a person, so it is not human. And it's not just some idea, which we're going to get into, so it is a capital resource. Entrepreneurship, that's going to be the idea behind the business, essentially. The idea to start your company, Google, the idea to start the search engine, Apple, the idea to start the iPhone, stuff like that. Think of that as like the idea into the company. So that's why people like on Shark Tank or business owners can be called entrepreneurs. So make it a little bit bigger so that way you guys can see. All right. Choice, I really hope we don't have any troubles with choice. So choice is you choose something, you make a selection. Oh, in case I wasn't clear, up here on resources, when you combine these things, like what I'm doing right now, I'm the human resource making this video with capital goods of my mouse and my computer with the idea of helping you guys study. The production is this live stream. So production is combining my resources to make something or to produce something, and the product will be this video. Choice, I think you're good on. Opportunity cost is what you give up. So if I asked you, do you want a Pepsi or Coke? If you choose Coke, Pepsi was your opportunity cost. You cost yourself the opportunity to drink Pepsi. Usually, it's going to be an either or situation, and you have to, and it's all when it's asking for opportunity cost, it's asking what did you give up? If you are buying a car, or more likely, if you're going to the movies or studying and you go to the movies, you gave up studying. It may not always be an amount, it might be something else. Price is what we pay for stuff, the cost, essentially. And we're looking at the interaction of supply and demand. Michael DMV. I know a lot of Michaels, so hey. Um, so we're looking for, if you remember when we did the graphs with the lemonade stand where supply and demand intersect or cross, that's going to be how we determine price. When supply is high, with demand being low, it's going to be like, so it's got this arrow going down like this, diagonal. If you can see my mouse. I don't know if you can or not. But essentially, when supply is high, demand's low, price is going to be cheap. Just like we were talking about Wii's and all that stuff. Right now, you can go into like any GameStop and buy a Wii for like 15 bucks. Michael Castillo. That's last year. What's up, Mike? Uh, right? Is it last year or is it 2 years ago? I'm pretty sure it was last year. All right. Um, if demand is high and supply is low, meaning it's hard to find things, that's when people were like, when the Wii came out, they were selling it for like $1,000 because nobody could find a Wii. So that's, the international supply and demand. That's how we figure out prices of things. Incentives. These are going to be your discounts, your for sale signs. They're things that motivate you to buy it. Or it could word it this way, where it's changing your economic behavior. So you walk by the store window. Yeah, Raiden. Yep. That's so polite. Yep. And here's what I think of that. There you go. So, anyways, incentives or changing economic behavior. So you're walking by the store window and you see like a coat or shoes that you want and they cost $200. Like I do not have the money or that's way too expensive. You walk by a little bit later and you see a for sale sign like 50% off. Now they're $100. Now you can buy them. Or now you're like, okay, this is a really good deal. I'm going to buy. So that changed your behavior. Before you're like, no, and now you're like with the sale, with the incentive, you're like, oh yeah, let's make it happen. So we talked about supply and demand. As you can see, they're crisscrossing there, and that's what price is. Demand, the basic version is how much you want something, okay? But the official definition is the amount of a good or service that consumers are willing able to buy at a certain price. So how much, basically, this is just saying, this is us, so how much we are willing to pay. That's demand. Whereas supply, this is where you guys struggle. You need to look at it from the seller's perspective. So that's going to be like the producer, the person making it. Either if you go into a restaurant, this would be the restaurant's viewpoint. This is the amount of good that they are willing to produce or make and how much they're willing to sell it for. So you can see, like, as the price goes up, look at the supply line here. They're like, here's how much they're charging. At $4, they're willing to make, we'll make a ton of these because the idea is they're making more profit or money off of each one. Whereas us, the buyer, when the price gets lower, we're willing to buy more. So at $4, only 40 of us are willing to buy it, but at $100, there you go. Where these lines intersect, that's our price. There's production, again, combining of resources to make stuff or produce things. Consumption, you're looking for this keyword, to use. Okay, so using of goods and services. You consume that steak is the same thing as saying you consume that your shampoo. Like because you took a shower. It doesn't mean you ate it, but you used the shampoo. All right, and then we've got our 4 economies: traditional, free market, command, and mixed. Here's the one here, the extent of government involvement. So the key factor when you're trying to figure out, okay, what economy am I dealing with, is how much government is involved. If it's a little, so here it is. If it's little, it's free market. If it's somewhere in the middle, it's mixed. If it's all government, it's command. After 3 years, I finally got to kind of see you. I don't know what that means. So they might change up this wording. Instead of saying government involvement, it might say government control. They might say government regulation. If you don't understand a word, I can help you in the question. So don't be afraid to ask. Remember on the SOL, I can't do that. 3 basic questions, which honestly I think you guys remember for the most part. What will be produced? Who will produce it? For whom it will be produced? I'll tell you right now, this is going to be a multiple select question. So I'm going to have these 3 things on there along with like 3 or 4 other options, and you're going to have to choose all 3. So what, who, and for whom? Okay. If I was doing this, I would ask me tomorrow, can I get out scratch paper? Can I, once you start the test, can I write stuff down? And I would write this down if I know I'm going to have trouble remembering. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. All right, so traditional economy, they're based on custom historical precedent, i.e. traditions. The first test is basically your vocab. That's the first one. The second one is the econ system, Stacy. So back to traditional. This is kind of the outlier. So think of like tribal, or think back before we really had money. This is where um, you're basically doing things just because that's how they've always been done. You're doing trading where, like, I want chicken, I have firewood, I'll trade you my firewood. Oh, that was you guys yelling at me. Hey guys, during baseball practice. So anyways, I have firewood, you have chickens, let's trade. I want to have a good meal, you need fire to cook your food anyways, so let's trade. That's what you're thinking with traditional economy, trading and bartering. It's also going to be the type of economy where basically your great-grandparents were a blacksmith, your grandparents were blacksmith, your dad was a blacksmith. Hey, guess what? You're going to be a blacksmith. So then we get to free market. So free market is just an idea. Remember, these don't actually exist. So we're looking at private ownership of property resources. So basically, everybody owns their own stuff. Like you own your clothes, you own your car, you own your house. You're doing everything basically based on profit because you're trying to make money so you can survive. We have competition. We've gone over what competition is. Burger King versus McDonald's, Microsoft versus Apple, things like that. One thing I haven't hit on a ton because we're going to get to it over here, but because this is the next thing we're learning. But competition usually results in two things: lower prices because they're competing, and usually results in a better quality good. So if there's somebody competing against them, you're usually going to get a better item eventually because they're trying to outdo each other. Consumer sovereignty, this is probably the trickiest term again. This is where through our purchases we determine what's going to get made. So this is where I told you about the fidget spinners. So like a year or two ago, everybody had to have a frickin' fidget spinner. The most annoying thing in the world. And once it became popular because people were buying them so much, every 7-Eleven, every gas station, whatever, had fidget spinners right at the register. But once people decided, oh, these really aren't cool, they're quite lame, well, people stopped buying them, and therefore the gas stations stopped selling them. So we as a consumer told them, hey, we don't want this anymore, and they stopped making it. If people will buy it, they will make it. If people don't buy it, they're not going to make it. That's the simple way to think of it. They might try to use fancy language saying like, consumers determined through, they're going to say consumers determined that this item wasn't going to be made, or they might say in a more fancy terminology, but just try and break it down as best you can. Individual choice, you're looking at basically you have a right to choose what you want to go buy, like Nike, Adidas, Reebok, whatever. And the idea is minimal government involvement, basically none. Again, this one it's a nice idea, but the fact of the matter is you got to have government to protect it, some things, which we'll get into in a second. So then we have command economy. So you asked about central ownership. Central ownership is just a fancy way of saying government. Like that's, for now, compute that. All right, I'm not going to get into all the technical, differences. Just know that we're basically saying government owns everything. Okay, central ownership, so the government's going to be in charge. They're going to own your property. They're going to own your resources. They're centrally planned, government planned. Just replace the word central in your head with government, and it'll help you out here. So government planned economy. So essentially, the government's going to say, all right, you're going to work for this wage. You're not going to negotiate. You're going to work for it. There's no choice. Remember I told you about the example of, like we said, the can of beans in the grocery store. Even if you go on strike for a month and you don't buy those beans, they're still going to be sitting there when you come back. A command economy is usually associated with a communist government because they kind of go hand in hand there. The last thing here is a mixed economy. Now, most countries are mixed, and this is where you guys might make a mistake here. A mixed economy is a mixture. It literally takes a command economy. It takes a free market economy. As you can see from the Venn diagram, it's the middle. It's taking from this side, and it's taking from this side. So if I asked you which type of economy has individual choice, the question is going for free market. Does mixed economy have choice? Yep. And is it up here? No. They have choice in the private sector. Okay, right here. So we have all the choices we want to make. We make the decisions. They said it in a different way there. But the point is when we're just talking about, if I just say individual choice, I'm not asking this to specify free market because we as a mixed economy took it from free market economy. We're like, we like that part. We're just going to go ahead and drag this down, but we're only going to apply it to private. The government's in charge of the public sector. We like that the government, makes sure that we're not paying thousands of dollars for electricity, thousands of dollars for basic resources like food, gas, things we need to survive. The government kind of says, they kind of monitor it and say, hey, there's only certain limits you can do it. Yes, capitalism plays a point. That's why prices do vary. Like your electric bill might be higher or lower. Your market might be higher or lower, but the government's regulating farms and how much, they can charge and the contracts they can buy and stuff like that because they want to make sure that people aren't going to starve, but people are going to have at least some kind of means to access it reasonably. Um, the government, for us at least, which again we'll talk about more when we get to U.S. economy, that's what's next, um, doesn't mean it's going to be super cheap, but at least it's there to kind of make sure that we're not totally like just pure capitalism. Because if that was the case, right, and everything was done by private, what's to stop gas companies from charging $100 a gallon? They could just collude and get together. But we have a government that says, no, that's wrong, that's illegal, you can't do that. They're protecting us as consumers in that mindset. So that's why right here, this sentence, government's role is greater than in a free market. They do some stuff, but they're not telling everybody what to do. So we kind of find that's why we're right in the middle. That's why it's a mixture of command and free market. And like I said, most are that one. All right, does anybody have any questions for me? Like I said, I was going to try and keep it short. I know you guys got stuff to do. Are you going to make bets? I honestly think you guys are going to do really well on this one. I'm still paying up on my bets I made about you with the quiz. So like keywords for the economy, how many questions? I actually think we went over 10 on both. So be prepared for like 12 or 13 for each. What do you mean by like the keywords for the economy? I mean, for command, you're looking for government control. But you have to be on, in your mind, whenever you see the word central, you have to know that's government. When you're talking about free market, you're looking for basically everything's through individual, the citizen. Like you have ultimate choice. Mix is a combination, and traditional is kind of its own thing. That's like your parents did this, so you're going to do that, and you're doing it just based on custom, which is it's just another way of saying the word tradition. They just didn't want to use the word traditional or tradition because of the economy being called traditional. Any other questions? All right, I will let you guys get some sleep. I get to go back to doing my homework. So again, I apologize. I just lost track of the time. I was literally sitting at my computer too. So you guys have a good night. You should get a profile picture for your channel, just a suggestion. I don't want to scare away people